Matt, he sent me a message saying if I buy that car, he'll sort me out the parts for it and we'll work out from there. So I had his word originally from the start. Alex had the same thing.
This is the $6 million Bugatti Persport that was crashed by Alex and then called me to see if I could repair it.
Start getting your flights, mate.
And last time I was here, I got all the damaged body panels off the car, the window.
There's a small garage in Leicester, England, where one of the most interesting battles in the modern automotive world has been quietly taking place. Inside that garage, a man named Mat Armstrong had been doing something that the biggest and most powerful car companies in the world said could never be done. He has been fixing cars, very expensive, very exclusive, very complicated cars, by himself, without their permission, without their parts, and without their help. And along the way, he has managed to pull the attention of some of the most powerful names on the planet, including the CEO of Bugatti and, if the rumors are to be believed, the world's richest man himself, Elon Musk. It sounds like the kind of story someone would make up, but it's been unfolding in front of millions of people on YouTube, one video at a time, in full public view. To understand how a regular guy with a wrench ended up at the center of a three-way battle involving a billion-dollar car company and a rocket-launching billionaire, you need to go back to where Mat Armstrong's story actually began, not in a garage, but on a BMX bike. Matt was not always a car guy. Before he ever picked up a wrench, he was a daredevil on two wheels. He loved BMX riding more than almost anything else in the world, and he was genuinely very good at it. He would spend hours every single day practicing difficult and dangerous moves, pushing himself harder with each session, always looking for the next big trick to master. His YouTube channel, which he started simply as a way to share his riding with whoever was interested, was already pulling in fans who loved watching someone push limits and take real risks. There was something about his personality, the raw honesty, the infectious energy, the fact that he never once pretended to be perfect or to have everything figured out, that people responded to immediately and deeply. He was not performing for the camera in the polished, rehearsed way that a lot of content creators do. He was just being himself, showing up exactly as he was. And that genuine quality was more than enough to build a loyal and growing audience. But that world came to a sudden and painful stop in 2013. During a BMX competition, Matt attempted a very difficult trick called the 720-degree tail whip. The move is exactly as dangerous as it sounds, requiring the rider to spin the bike twice in the air while performing a full-body rotation at the same time. He dislocated his shoulder during the attempt, and just like that, the career he had dreamed of was in serious jeopardy. He had two choices sitting in front of him. He could wait for his body to heal and then go back to doing the same risky stunts that already hurt him badly once, knowing that the sport would likely hurt him again. Or he could accept the injury as a signal and walk away to find something new. For many people, that would have been a genuinely heartbreaking and complicated decision to face. For Matt, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to him, even though he could not possibly have known that at the time. He chose to change direction, and that one decision would eventually lead him to a path that nobody, including himself, could predict it or imagine back in that difficult moment in 2013. IT took Matt a few years to find his footing after leaving BMX behind, but by 2019 he had made his way into the world he had grown up around, cars. This was not a completely unfamiliar territory for him. His father had always been comfortable with cars, the kind of man who was happiest with a wrench in his hand and engine grease on his clothes. And some of that practical knowledge had naturally passed down to his son through years of watching and occasional helping. But knowing a little about how cars work in general, and actually being capable of restoring a seriously damaged, complicated vehicle back to a drivable condition are two entirely different things. Matt knew he had a very long way to go, and rather than hide that fact or try to pretend otherwise, he made a decision that would define his entire career from that moment onward. He decided to record every single step of the process. He set up a camera in the garage, pointed it at whatever he was working on, and started filming his progress. Every mistake he made along the way was captured on video. Every dead end, every wrong turn, every moment of frustration, and every small breakthrough was shared with the growing audience watching him. The first car he worked on in this public, documented way was his girlfriend's wrecked Audi TT. The car was in genuinely bad shape. The back wheel had completely snapped off, and the body damage throughout was serious enough that a lot of people might have simply written the car off entirely. But Matt did not care about that. He was not trying to show off a perfect result from day one. He was trying to learn, and he was willing to let people watch him struggle through that learning process in real time, without filters or edits that would make him look better than he actually was. And something remarkable happened as a result of that decision. People loved it. They did not just watch because the content happened to be interesting, although it certainly was. They watched because Matt made them feel like they were right there in the garage with him, genuinely part of the process rather than just passive observers watching a finished product. Something clicked for Matt during that first project, not just mechanically, but personally and professionally. The restoration of the Audi TT was ultimately a success, and his YouTube channel saw a significant and sustained spike in subscribers following it. More importantly, it gave Matt a clear blueprint for everything that would follow. He had discovered his formula. Be completely honest, bring real passion, take on challenges that look impossible, and share every moment of the journey with the people who are watching. That formula, as straightforward as it sounds, would eventually bring some of the most powerful and influential people in the entire automotive world to his doorstep, whether they had any desire to be there or not. After the success of the Audi TT restoration, Matt did not take his foot off the gas. He kept taking on new projects, kept pushing himself further into more difficult and ambitious territory, and kept that complete openness with his audience that had made people connect with him in the first place. His subscriber count continued climbing, and with more viewers came more confidence and more ambition. He moved from the Audi TT onto bigger challenges, including a Maserati Gran Turismo and, at a significant step up in terms of prestige and complexity, an Audi R8 Coupe, a car that, while not officially classified as a supercar by the automotive industry, was treated by Matt with all the seriousness and ambition of one. He even insisted on referring to it as a supercar in his own terms, arguing that what made a car super had more to do with what it represented and demanded from the person working on it than with some official label attached to it by the industry. That attitude immediately rubbed some people the wrong way, particularly among the more traditional car enthusiasts who felt very strongly that such labels existed for a reason. The R8 was in rough shape when he acquired it, missing a side blade, struggling with engine issues, and needing serious bodywork attention across multiple areas. But Matt had been steadily building his skills with each project, and he approached the coupe with the same energy, honesty, and methodical determination that had worked so well before. He also worked on the Maserati Gran Turismo at the same time, keeping his viewers updated on both projects simultaneously, which added another layer of difficulty to an already challenging situation. One of the things that made Matt genuinely controversial among the more traditional corners of the car community was his willingness to source parts from completely different vehicles when official replacement parts were not available or were far too expensive to justify. Where a traditional restorer or a die-hard purist would insist on using only the exact original components from the exact original manufacturer, Matt was entirely comfortable fitting parts from different cars if they could do the same job effectively. Some fans absolutely loved his creative, solutions-focused approach and saw it as refreshingly practical and clever. Others, particularly the serious gearheads who took the purity of original restorations very personally, were genuinely offended by it. To them, what Matt was doing felt like vandalism of a sophisticated and expensive machine. But Matt did not particularly trouble himself with that criticism. He was not trying to restore cars to some museum quality, perfectly original condition. He was trying to make them functional, prove that official dealer involvement was not always necessary, and demonstrate that the barriers the industry had built around high-end car repairs were not as solid as those companies wanted people to believe. This attitude, this constant willingness to question what everybody assumed was just a natural and unchangeable order of things, was precisely what began attracting serious attention from the very industry he was quietly but unmistakably challenging. Be why the time Matt set his sights on an Aston Martin, he had become a genuine and well-established force in the world of automotive content. His subscriber numbers were strong and still growing. His videos were generating millions of views on a consistent basis. And his reputation as someone willing to take on cars that nobody else would dare touch had been firmly and publicly established. So when he got hold of a wrecked Aston Martin, a car with just 39 miles on the odometer, which had been crashed by an Aston Martin employee during an internal test drive before the model was even officially released to the public, it felt like a natural and exciting next chapter in his ongoing story. The car was technically brand new in terms of how little it had been driven, even though it was also a complete structural wreck, and fixing it, Mat was confident, should be entirely achievable without any involvement or assistance from Aston Martin as a company. Things did not go according to plan, and they did not go according to plan in a way that was deeply and publicly humbling for someone who had built his entire identity around being able to figure things out independently. The main problem Mat ran into was one he had not fully anticipated or prepared for. No matter what he tried, the car simply would not turn on. He ran full diagnostics on it, tried every trick and technique he had learned through years of hands-on experience, consulted his growing knowledge base, and got nowhere. The car sat there in the garage, completely unresponsive and uncooperative, regardless of what approach he took. For someone who had made his name by finding unconventional solutions to mechanical problems that stumped other people, this was a genuinely sobering and uncomfortable experience. He eventually did what felt most like admitting defeat. He reached out to Aston Martin directly for help. To the company's credit, they engaged with him rather than ignoring him. Their technical team explained that they had seen similar issues with the DB12 model, where damage to the bumper had caused electrical failures that prevented the car from starting at all. Following that guidance, Mat worked alongside an engineer from the company's official dealership to complete the bodywork and bring the car into much better physical condition overall. But even after all of that, the car still refused to start. Eventually, Aston Martin dispatched the technical team directly to Mat's garage. They arrived dressed in suits, every inch the polished representatives of a very serious and prestigious car company, and they got the car running in under 10 minutes. It was, by any fair and honest measure, a clear defeat for Mat, and he knew it immediately. He told his entire audience exactly what had happened, making absolutely no attempt to spin the situation in his favor or pretend the outcome had been different. "We were defeated," he said plainly and without drama. The whole point was to avoid the main dealer as a DIYer. But sometimes you gotta give in. It was one of the most important and revealing moments of his entire career. Not because he lost, but because of how he responded to losing. He owned it completely, without excuses, and moved forward. That honesty, if anything, made his audience trust him even more deeply than they had before. Yet the Aston Martin experience was a significant setback. It was also an important and valuable lesson. Mat came away from that project with a much clearer and more realistic sense of what he was genuinely up against when dealing with cars at the very top level of the industry. And yet, rather than pulling back his ambitions in response to that reality, he went in a complete opposite direction with a boldness that surprised even his most loyal supporters. He decided to take on the car that virtually everyone in the automotive world, mechanics, engineers, enthusiasts, and manufacturers alike, agreed was absolutely and categorically impossible to repair outside an official licensed Bugatti facility. That car was a Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, one of the most technically complex, extraordinarily expensive, and deliberately exclusive road cars ever built by any manufacturer in the world. The opportunity arrived through an unexpected source. An American celebrity named Alec Gonzalez had crashed his Chiron Per Sport into another vehicle in late 2025. The damage was serious and extensive, and having Bugatti officially repair the car would have cost several $1,000,000 on top of the car's already enormous original price tag. Rather than take that route, Alec acquired the salvage rights to the vehicle and purchased it through a Copart auction. He had heard about a mechanic working out of Leicester, England, who had built a serious reputation for taking on exactly the kinds of challenges that the rest of the world had already written off as impossible. He contacted Mat, and Mat agreed to take on the project without hesitation. The Bugatti Chiron Per Sport is worth approximately $6 million, and Bugatti's approach to repairs and spare part availability is famously and deliberately strict. The company controls every aspect of how their cars are maintained and serviced, and they have built systems that make it extremely difficult, if not functionally impossible, for anyone outside their official network to obtain the parts needed to properly repair one. Mat walked into the project fully aware of all of this. Bugatti, for their part, made sure he felt the weight of every single one of those restrictions from the moment he started. They said nothing publicly about what he was attempting. Instead, they simply made sure that every door he tried to open for spare parts was quietly closed before he could walk through it. No replacement components were available to him through official channels. and when he tried to find other Bugatti owners who might be willing to order parts on his behalf, those attempts were also blocked through behind-the-scenes pressure. It was a corporate version of being completely frozen out, and Mat felt it immediately and acutely. But rather than quietly struggling with the situation on his own, he did what he had always done. He told his audience everything. He made a video explaining in full detail exactly what Bugatti was doing to obstruct his work, and why he could not get the parts he needed to move forward. He named the company directly, laid out their behavior clearly and publicly, and essentially dared them to respond to what he was saying. It was a genuinely bold and risky move, and it immediately drew an enormous amount of attention to the project and to the conflict behind it. Being completely blocked from official parts supply channels would have been the end of the road for most people attempting what Mat was trying to do. The Bugatti Chiron is not a car you can realistically improvise your way through. Every single component in it is engineered to an extraordinary and uncompromising level of precision, and the very idea that you could substitute parts sourced from completely different vehicles seemed, at first glance, completely and obviously ridiculous. Bugatti had built its entire global reputation on the idea that their cars occupied a category entirely their own, one that existed far beyond the reach of regular mechanics, far outside the scope of DIY repairs, and certainly far above anything a YouTube content creator working in a rented garage could realistically touch. Their exclusivity was not just a marketing position. It was presented as an objective and technical reality. But Mat had always been at his best when he was approaching problems from unexpected angles, and the Bugatti project pushed that creativity to places he had never needed to go before. His first genuine breakthrough came with the airbag system. The Chiron's airbags needed replacing, and he could not source official Bugatti replacement airbags through any channel available to him at any price. So he approached the problem from a completely different direction. He sourced an Audi A3, a practical, everyday family car that costs a tiny fraction of what the Chiron is worth, and found that with the right approach, its airbag system could actually be adapted to fit into and function within the damaged Bugatti. Remarkably, it worked. The automotive world looked on with a mixture of genuine disbelief and growing admiration. Mat had just demonstrated, in front of a massive audience, that one of the most exclusive and supposedly incomparable cars ever built shared meaningful mechanical compatibility with a relatively ordinary and affordable vehicle. The implications of that demonstration were enormous, both for Mat's personal reputation as someone who could genuinely solve problems that others said were unsolvable, and for Bugatti's carefully constructed image of being in a completely separate and untouchable category from every other car on the road. But Mat was not finished with his improvised solutions. He began seriously exploring the possibility of 3D printing replacement components for the Chiron, including elements of the gearbox housing, a proposal that generated arguably even more controversy and discussion than the Audi airbag swap had. The idea that you could manufacture functional replacement parts for a $6 million hypercar using a consumer-accessible 3D printer seemed almost absurd when stated plainly.